All right. For our inaugural or kickoff session with the Apes on Keys YouTube channel, I'm going to take you through what's a relatively manual process, but I know my family got a kick out of it as well as some friends of ours. So my entire family has trouble sleeping generally at nighttime. The kids like podcasts, and so since I've been going through a lot of meditation with Calm and what's Sam's waking up podcasts or sorry app, etc. Decided to start experimenting with making some of my own podcasts with the help of ElevenLabs since I was tired of recording them manually myself. So I also got some inspiration here from Katie Krimitsos of the Women's Meditation Network. I listened to one of hers and thought, I should try making one of these. So anyways, that aside, we are on Spotify here. You can see that this is the AOK Key to Sleep podcast. It's got some lovely SEO with the words like drifting, bedtime, sleep stories. We've got a about us that's also SEO driven. And then what you will notice here is some nice consistent styling with the artwork for each of these episodes. They all have a title and a theme. Let's click into this one. See that it follows the standard description of sort of like what it's about, keywords that help the search. Some of these I actually have me reading versus voice clone, and then some I've played some live music on as opposed to this being a cappella. I'll keep experimenting, but the plan is to have this fully AI automated. But there's also this, description we just saw here. Sorry. So each one of these is my voice.
Tundra's Whisper, a sleep story from Apes on Keys. Tonight, let us drift into the quiet world of ice and whispers.
So the idea of, using a narrative journey with the main character, which since I'm doing these mostly for younger, like elementary and middle school kids, I'm picking ages 7 to 13 for the characters. There's usually an animal or a companion in it. And then there's some sort of moral values that I am actually instilling, like classic fairy tales around integrity and trust and compassion and empathy and drive and focus and a number of things of this nature. And they're all sort of evidenced in this journey. So this is the output, which goes through sort of like a standard Spotify for Creators interface here. Just started this whole thing a couple days ago. So what I'm doing the old way is in ChatGPT, I have a prompt that goes something like this, and I save this all in a markdown file that I can share. So I have it generate this, you're a meditative sleep story writer. It needs to include these things about gentle imagery, things that are emotionally grounding. I'm telling the model to set it in some distinct geographical setting or landscape for the journey to be more interesting. In this case, I had already generated the girl was a 7-year-old named Alina because I was a friend, but otherwise it would be randomized with that part of the prompt. Decide if they have a companion or not, and what kind. In this case, I wanted, or generally I want them to have sort of a challenge or encounter, and notice this is a gentle because of the age. I don't want it to be too aggressive. And then I'm prompting it with details here. For ElevenLabs, ElevenLabs needs ellipses for a pause. If you want a short pause, I tell it 3 dots. If you want, 2, then 6 for 2 ellipses. It's assuming that I'm going to be narrating this. I'll probably change this later, but the plan is for it to be sort of grounded and soothing. The funny thing is that grounding and soothing are more for ElevenLabs, but you can't control that just yet. And then a target output length, 6,000 to 7,000 words. Thus far, this guidance has not really hit. I'm still experimenting with it because this ends up being about a 10-minute episode that it generated. But I run through this, saves it into memory, and generates this lovely little transcript for a podcast. It's a sleep meditation, Alina and the Tundra's Whisper. And then here's the output, right? And then leveraging the output of the transcript, I also end up I run a separate prompt to get the metadata that you need to put into Spotify for Creators or Transistor or RSS.com or whoever else you use for your podcast hosting. And then I'm looking for, SEO kid-friendly terms or friendly terms rather, so that the it can actually be discovered. And then there's always an upsell for the AOK shop itself so that maybe I can sell a little bit of merch. This whole thing's just a fun endeavor. So want to make a few dollars while designing things like hats and hoodies. Um, and then, here's the metadata generated, the title, a good description, the keywords for SEO purposes or podcast search optimization purposes. And then I say, oh, let's run through my usual script here. So I need a 1:1 aspect ratio. It needs to have the illusion and the text of the title. It should match the environment, visual mood, etc. feel of the first transcript that was written. Maintain stylistic consistency. Since I'm doing this within a project, in this case, it actually knows what that means. Define some details about it in terms of the look. Only include that text on there. And then somewhere in here, there's a call out on adding AOK. Well, actually, I think I followed up on this one. It generated this image, and then I was like, oh, don't forget, we need the AOK. So she's got it on the beanie since that's part of it. That ended up becoming this. And, the same exercise was performed for, this one. Oops, sorry, that is back to Noah and the Whispering Cove. Same sort of exercise. Um, so reviewing again, it's a three-part, three separate prompts: the story generator to get the transcript, the metadata generator for creating what you need to upload the podcast for search purposes, and then the artwork generator. And then you're asking, oh, what about the transcript itself? So I go into ElevenLabs. I created a voice clone for myself. So in this studio, here's the Alina example. I just dropped in that the transcript is created, and you can see these are the pauses I was alluding to earlier. And then I'm using a voice. This is like a clone version of my voice, reading relatively sort of honestly monotone and quiet, because I was reading to my wife at nighttime as inspiration for this sort of voice, and then sort of edited out, popping and background noise with a little bit of production work that was not AI driven. So this all gets generated, and then I'm downloading it. So in terms of Spotify for creators, when I'm creating a new episode, all I'm doing is just running through that process, uploading the audio, and then going and adding the metadata that you see here that helps with discoverability and the title itself and the artwork. So start to finish, creating what in this case, what does it say, a 5.5 minute sleep time meditation that someone could, obviously turn the speed down to 0.8 and extend it a little bit, but nice little sleep meditation done in a fairly formulaic way. And this sort of catalog or corpus is continuing to grow. The video tomorrow will be about automating this entire process with actual software as opposed to the apps, and probably for a slightly different audience. But here we go. That was it. Create a podcast for your family. It doesn't necessarily have to be this sleep, but I'll share each of these three prompts with you, or maybe the entire thing within the show notes. Happy podcasting if you're not one who wants to voice them yourself and you have specific use cases. Ideally, not AI slop. I think this is actually high value stuff. It's been working to put my little ones to sleep. All right, that's it for Apes on Keys.